Hi, and welcome to Deeply Connecting. Today we have Amy with us, and Amy spent 8 years in East Africa, and so she's going to talk to us a bit about connecting with others through suffering. So tell us about some of your experience in Uganda related to that.
Okay. So I think kind of our ministry there was really based around relationships. So we did a lot of kind of practical things as well. But my most favorite thing that we did, we called contact time, and we just would go around the communities that we worked in. We worked in eventually four kind of slum areas that were very, very poor. And we would just walk around the communities and talk to people. Basically, it was the project, if it can be called that. And through that, just built these kind of incredible bonds with people. At first it was awkward. We'd walk around and maybe no one would be out and it would end in 15, 20 minutes. Often it was just playing with kids, which, was great. But eventually these kind of incredible bonds formed, and we got to know the real deep needs of those who were suffering, and be there in times where things came up. And I remember one of the first people that we really got to know is a lady who's still a great friend of mine. And we got a call from the landlord of the slum and told us that a little girl had been burnt. And so we showed up, and I believe she was 4 at the time. Her name's Harriet. And she had cotton balls stuck all over her where she had been burned. And she had been left alone in her house while her mom went out to fetch water or something. And in a curtain, they keep their doors open during the day. So they have these curtains that hang in front of their doors and to their little huts or whatever. And that had caught on fire and fallen on her. So she was burnt really badly. And so we took her to the local clinic, and they had to peel off the cotton balls, which was excruciatingly painful for her. And then we had to take her, I believe, every day for a while to get her redressed and make sure the wounds didn't get infected and kind of heal them. And it was kind of, I believe, a number of months after she had kind of recovered from that. And we had drove the mom with the child every day, and just really got to know them through that time. And so by the end of it, I was just doing contact time one morning, and she was outside her home, and it just felt this prompting from God to share the gospel with her and ask her if she had a relationship with Jesus or if she wanted that. And so when I got to the end of kind of talking to her about that and explaining it, she said something to the effect of, "Yes, I want that." And so low of faith I was like, does she understand what we're talking about? But she said that kind of through her experience of watching her daughter be healed and getting to know it, she had seen Jesus and wanted that. And this, I can think of just right off the top of my head 2 other very similar stories where, with the other 2 even more severe, where a boy who had a super infected foot and could hardly move when we met him, and the doctor said he would likely lose his foot if it had spread to the bone. And we prayed for him before going into surgery, and prayed that he wouldn't lose his foot, and prayed with his mom. And as we were driving home from the hospital with her, again shared the gospel, and she said, "Yes, I know that Jesus is real because I've seen my son's, because I knew when I went to the hospital that my son would come home without a foot, and because he still has his foot, I know Jesus is real." And so I think, and these were all kind of, horrible, traumatic situations, for us to witness as a team, but of course, especially for the family to go through and the children to be in excruciating pain. But just through being with them in those times, the gospel basically spoke for itself, and didn't need a gospel presentation as such. But yeah.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the story earlier about how your team helped bond through the death of a baby.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think also as a team, we were kind of going through all this together, and many of us kind of being, thrown into the deep end in a sense in ministry to these very vulnerable people and to extreme suffering. And there was a boy we cared for a very long time named Alex, and he was very sick when we met him, and we put him on our feeding program because he was really malnourished, and he was just kind of up and down. He would get better for a while, and we'd celebrate as he gained weight, and then he would kind of become more ill for a while, but the team would go every week faithfully and bring his family a package of food and spend time with him and pray with his family, and then he got sick again, and we had him at our kind of local clinic, and he died in the night. And it was so, I remember getting the call and having to go into my housemate's room, who was one of the main ones caring for him, and tell her, and it was just absolutely devastating. And we had to go to the clinic and carry his body back to his community, and be there with his family as they came out to mourn and cry. And it was probably at that time one of the darkest moments of my life. I remember being in, we typically went to that community during the day, but at that time we went before the sun had rose, and so we're kind of walking through this really through the mud and the swamps and whatever, with this boy that we loved who was no longer alive. And so after that, we as a team, we worshiped together every morning, and so we in my living room. So we gathered together a few hours after that, and in my house, and slowly told everyone as they came in what had happened to the team who hadn't heard yet. And I think we're all shocked and sad and heartbroken. And I remember almost wanting to, I was a leader on the team and wanting to kind of lead the team and give hope or whatever, but not knowing how to, not being so experienced with death myself, not knowing how to kind of shepherd them in this time. And I remember one of our national staff, just kind of after we had shared, and he just on his own started singing this hymn, and just as a team we all kind of a cappella sang together this hymn and worshiped God. And I think to me there was just something so beautiful about that morning together of we're all broken and we don't have words, and this isn't what we wanted. We prayed and believed for something different, and we have questions about why we didn't get what we want, and but coming together regardless, and coming together around the God who's hope, and still choosing to worship and trust him was just such a powerful time for us as a team.
Yeah. I'm thinking of how in those situations, I know of a friend who lost his son, and from that decided to reject God. Mm-hmm. And it seems like such a time where it's just hard to reconcile.
Yeah. I think it is. I mean, I don't have the experience of losing a child, and so, so it's hard to speak into that. But yeah, I do wonder if kind of moments like that, they touch us at the deepest level, and I think, and sometimes changes at the deepest level, sometimes for worse and sometimes for good. And we had a woman who also lost a child to malnutrition, and right after that, she was Muslim, and her husband was actually did witchcraft in the community, and she decided to follow Jesus through that experience. And we actually, after her child died, I remember going to her house and just all worshiping together in her little house. This was before she had really chosen to follow Jesus, but just praying with her and worshiping. And not long after that, she decided she wanted to follow Jesus. And then it was her who kind of led her husband in that direction later on. And so, yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, sometimes the opposite happens, but I do think, suffering can open the hearts of people and bring them to their knees and God can do stuff through it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's almost like when we're in our most vulnerable places or in our weakest places, there's opportunity for our hearts to be touched in special ways.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Can you think of anything else that you might want to add related to suffering?
Nothing that easily comes to mind. We kind of talked about this before, but I mean, I think with everything that we're talking about, it means there's no reason to be afraid of it. It can sharpen our relationship with God. It can sharpen our our relationships with others around us. It can, and like you're commenting on, it can also raise questions that lead us away. But I think even in the questioning, if we lean in the right direction, it's not the questioning that leads us away. Like, there is question in suffering. You don't watch a child die of malnutrition and not have questions, right? Like, that's not how God designed the world, and it's not right. And there's something in us that wrestles against that. I think because that's not how God designed things, and we're not supposed to be okay with that. And so I think even suffering does bring up questions, and I think we have to wrestle with those and be confront those and be real about those. To lean into God. I think if we can kind of close ourselves off to our emotions and be like, it's okay, God's sovereign, God's in control, whatever the kind of things we tell ourselves to convince ourselves we're okay. But I think, we actually have to go through the suffering. We can't just expose ourselves to it around us. We actually have to feel it and wrestle with it in order,
What were some of the things that have come out of you feeling and wrestling with the suffering that you've seen?
I hope it's made me more compassionate, and I think it's definitely made me more aware of the reality of others. And in the pain of others, and I hope in that it's maybe more just compassionate and better able to comfort others. I think it has led me to be kind of more comfortable in being around it. There's an awkwardness in suffering. I think, particularly in America, we're not used to death and extreme sickness even, and so there's a discomfort for us in being in it, and that's I don't think there's that level of discomfort or the same kind of discomfort in other places, in places where they have maybe a different worldview on suffering or a different experience of it, but I think kind of entering into it has made it easier to enter in a sense, and that it's awkward to sit with someone after they've lost a kid, but it's right and it's beautiful. And so I think entering into that is a little easier now, maybe.
Yeah. A couple of questions from that. One is what is a good way to comfort someone in their suffering, or to show that you're there and supportive? And then the other question is the whole big question of why does God allow suffering? Why, that type of thing, just the philosophical thing there. But let's
There's other people more qualified to answer both those. I think people who've been through types of suffering that I haven't been through could say better.
Yeah.
You know, how to be there. I think, and so I think ask them. You know, if someone's suffering, I think sometimes the tendency is to say too much or try to talk them out of their suffering, essentially by, you know, speaking other truths. But, you know, I think asking people what they need. I think presence is the most important. You know, we are created in human bodies and are created to be with other people in human bodies. And so I think presence is the most important, whether, you know, whatever you do on top of that, you know, it depends on the situation and matters less. You know, if that's a practical task, bringing a meal or cleaning up someone's house, or if it's, you know, spiritual and praying for them or whatever. I think being present and finding ways to do that. I think, you know, particularly in our like independent culture, people don't easily say, yeah, I need a friend, can you come over? Or, you know, I really can't go, I'm too anxious to go to the grocery store right now, can you do that for me? You know, we don't easily ask for help or what we need or even know what we need. And so I think kind of breaking through that and being present and is important.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for just sharing your experience.
Absolutely.
And if you want to hear more about connecting with God and others, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.